Well, I love your point, Christine, because I do think that there is this isolated place on the internet where so many business owners live where they're scared of social and they're scared to do anything because it's not perfect. It's not Brock Johnson, right? So there's this huge gap. Nothing on Brock. I love Brock, but it's like there's this huge gap where it's like if I can't do it perfect, I shouldn't do it at all. And I think it's really interesting because you would never say, I'm going to run a marathon, but I won't do the 5K. Like you would never say that. So in the same way with social, it's really just about getting that started. And it's the same thing with our communities. Really, it's about building those relationships with people who are going to be your fan base. And just to bring it back to my story a little bit, when we were building my personal development business, I did all my sales on Instagram. I had less than 3,000 followers. I had sold out launches. I had people who were like hunting me down to work one-on-one. I did not get a lot of price aversions. I had corporate workshops. I had so much stuff going on, which was so great. And why that was, it was because I had a really fabulous community.
Welcome to the Next Level Life podcast with Christine Corcoran. This podcast is made for the powerhouse businesswomen who are ready to ignite their fullest potential. This is where we will dive deep into the mindset breakthroughs and sprinkle in some kick up the butt motivation so you can scale your business with confidence and clarity. Whether you're craving more income, impact, or inspiration, this podcast will be your ultimate resource for all things next level. Listen in as we have authentic conversations with game-changing female entrepreneurs as we reveal the secrets on what it takes to rise and thrive. So go ahead, ignite your inner fire, and let's get you taking massive aligned action. Are you ready to elevate? Let's go. Get ready for a fun conversation. I've invited the beautiful Kristina, who is the founder of the Social Snippet, to come and join us to talk all about Instagram growth and building community online. I met Kristina at the dinner series events that I've been attending in the States, and she is such an incredible connector. And she's absolutely killing it online. So I want to share with you a couple of things that we covered off in today's episode. We dive into why building community online is so important, how to increase your engagement, how to build genuine community connections online, the Instagram growth hacks that actually work, and the mindset shift that you need to have if you're focusing on the wrong things like follower count and going viral, and why that's not going to benefit your bank account. Kristina BARTOLD is the co-founder and the CEO of the Social Snippet. She loves helping entrepreneurs and small business owners grow their communities online using social media and podcasting. Kristina has been working in the social media space for over 10 years as a side hustle, and she finally realized it was her passion and calling to pair her extensive experience coaching with her love for social strategy. The Social Snippet was born with her co-founder, Maria, and the rest is history. Kristina spends most of her days recording podcast episodes with the Build Your Digital Community podcast, coaching business owners on how to grow their businesses, and hosting events for local female entrepreneurs to grow their businesses. So excited to introduce you to and share the energy and absolute passion from Kristina with you. Let me introduce you to the beautiful Kristina BARTOLD. Okay, so I thought I better hit record because we've already been chatting for like 20 minutes. And I knew this would happen because my beautiful friend Kristina is coming onto the podcast to talk all about building community, creating connections online, and smashing your social goals. So I'd love to welcome you to the podcast, Kristina. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Christine, thank you for having me. I know we are like in having time zone woes, being across the world from each other, which is so sad, but at least we get to see each other a few times a year. And yeah, I'm just so excited to be here, pouring into anybody who wants to listen, and excited to get to know you a bit better in the process.
Well, what I've absolutely loved about connecting with you, and we met as part of the dinner series as I've been traveling to LA and to America to go to these amazing events, is that you are such a great connector, like so good at building community, and it's just come so naturally to you that it doesn't surprise me that you also then do this online. So before we even dive into all the fun, incredible tips and tricks and all the things we're going to talk about, I'd love for you just to give us a little bit of background. Tell us a little bit about you and what or how you began Social Snippet.
Yeah. So I came by it quite honestly, and I think about this always. So I am a pure example of someone who like had a dream and just kind of brought it to life. I finished my master's degree in leadership. I worked in leadership development. That was kind of what I did for a few years after graduating university, and always did social media as a side hustle, but like never really like thought much about it. I thought everybody knew how to do everything. Like I was like, doesn't everybody know how to sell something online? Like I just thought everybody did. And that's, I think, a trick, right? Like it's like our giftings often are the things that are so personal to us. But so during the pandemic, I started doing some private like leadership, personal development coaching. And my business partner, Maria, was my virtual assistant. And I was doing all this coaching one-on-one with people. And I was realizing that Like nobody knew how to use any social media platforms. Like all of my clients were business owners and I was doing work with them and I was teaching them like leadership concepts and then on the side how to use Flowdesk or how to sell in an Instagram story, how to tell a story in a way that was great for marketing. And so it was really interesting that I really realized there was this gap in the market. So at least in my market. And so I went to my business partner and I was like, hey, what do you think? Like, would you want to like start the social snippet with me? We do a little social media agency, a little side hustle. And she was like, no, I don't want to do this with you. Working on social media is not impactful. I just don't think that's not like the life work I want to do. And over time, I chipped away at her, and we realized that, like, we collectively realized that social media is one of the most impactful things we could do for a business. Is like helping people market their dreams. And when we started to change our own like narrative and language around it, it was amazing how much the way we thought about our work changed. So we started in May of 2021 with 2 clients. We still have those same clients today. And now we're a social media and podcasting agency. We have 85 clients, and then the other piece is that we do events for Canadian entrepreneurial women because I'm based in Canada. So I also have a trek to LA, but nothing like Christine's trek. And yeah, so we're really focused on helping business owners like build community online because we know that when people actually focus on building community, that's where the sales happen. Like when they're too focused on the numbers and they're too focused on what people think about them, they don't have the opportunity to build those relationships that really lead to sales long term.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And I feel like it's a completely different shift, a different lens to look through social media, right? Because
Mm.
so many social media coaches talk about like, going viral and getting more followers and all of that type of crap. And it's kind of like, well, every time we focus on that, it leaves people feeling like they're just not enough, leaves people feeling like
Yeah.
they're failing. And I think once you focus actually on remembering that you're talking to another human being, like you can
Yeah.
start focusing on community. So talk to us about what community really means to you.
Mm. Well, I love your point, Christine, because I do think that there is this isolated place on the internet where so many business owners live where they're scared of social and they're scared to do anything because it's not perfect. It's not Brock Johnson, right? So there's this huge gap. Nothing on Brock. I love Brock, but it's like there's this huge gap where it's like if I can't do it perfect, I shouldn't do it at all. And I think it's really interesting because you would never say, I'm going to run a marathon, but I won't do the 5K. Like you would never say that. So in the same way with social, it's really just about getting that started. And it's the same thing with our communities. Really, it's about building those relationships with people who are going to be your fan base. And just to bring it back to my story a little bit, when we were building my personal development business, I did all my sales on Instagram. I had less than 3,000 followers. I had sold out launches. I had people who were like hunting me down and work one-on-one. I did not get a lot of price aversions. I had corporate workshops. I had so much stuff going on, which was so great. And why that was, it was because I had a really fabulous community. And so I was selling to the same people over and over again. They were making great referrals for me. It wasn't like I was spending all my time trying to grow. I was actually trying to spend my time nurturing. And when I spent that time nurturing that community of people, they were my biggest advocates. I actually didn't need to like grow and scale. It was really they were helping build me there. So what I would say when I think of the word community, what I really think of is not following. It's not that number next to your name. It's really about those people who know, like, and trust you and will buy anything from you. They're those repeat customers. So the people who you own that diner and they're sitting at your counter every day. Like those are the people who are your community and who rally for you when times are tough and when times are great.
Mm. So true. And I've done the same thing, like built a business on a very small following. Like I still only have, I think I've like 4,000. I say only, but I've been able to build a really strong, sustainable multi-six-figure business with under 4,000 followers. Like it's absolutely freaking doable. And I think so many people get so caught up in just worrying about, oh, I've got to get to 10,000 followers. I've got to have 100,000 followers before anything. And it's like, actually, how are you serving and nurturing the current people that you have? Because if you think that, like, I think one of my biggest shifts as well with regards to this is like, I think I was at like 2,000 or 3,000 followers at one point, and I was like, constantly putting out content. Like I was just in that phase of like content, because it was like that constant conversation around you've got to be putting content out regularly. And I was like, what am I actually doing to create connections here? Because I'm putting
Mm,
out and I'm like almost like dropping and leaving and not really nurturing the people that are really here. And I remember hearing someone say like, if you think that you don't have enough, but you're actually not serving the people that you have. So how
Yeah.
can you serve people you have as if they were in the room with you? Like if I ran an event and there were 3,000 people, holy,
Yeah.
right? And they were in the
Yeah.
room, like, so it helped me shift my focus to be like, well, actually stop focusing on trying to get more and actually just start focusing on nurturing. So if that's someone that's listening right
Mhm.
now, I'd love for you to share your thoughts on this around like, what would you do necessarily to help nurture the current people that you have before we even start talking about growth?
Oh, yeah. So you are speaking my language, like 100%. Because honestly, I think Lori said this thing at Girlfriends in Business, and she wasn't talking about it from a perspective of social, but it like really resonated with me, which was often when we're like looking for something in our lives, we're not keen to go first. So she was saying, I really wanted to have some like fun conversations with my girlfriends. And so I just started texting my girlfriends and then I had the fun conversations. And it's the same thing with social. We want people to follow us, but are we following? We want people to engage with our content. Are we engaging? Are we there to go first? One of the things I really tell people when they're trying to, grow their social and they're starting to nurture their community is really about like engaging with your ideal clients, going to their posts that aren't even about what your niche is and saying, "Whoa, love that. Like that's so great." Like cheering them on, bringing on their accomplishments, because then there's this natural know, like, and trust. You start to just naturally algorithm wise show up more for them if you're like in conversation with them. So that's a little hack. But really what I would say is look at who you have in your audience right now and see who are prospective clients and how can you serve them? Because the other thing is that often when we're posting things, we're not only posting things for ourselves, right? We're posting our things for our network, their network. So even for example, somebody posted the other day a thing about cold sales, which is like not my favorite topic, but like, cold sales. And I know someone who's looking to learn about cold sales. And so I forwarded the account and was like, hey, this guy just came up for me. You should take a look. It looks like he knows what he's doing. You have no idea who's watching you from afar. So I think really just trying to pour in and engage with people is so important. And one of the things I was going to say too, Kristina, about what you were talking about with having a small following, and I'm putting small in air quotes because small can be 5 or 50,000, depending on who you are. It never ends. You never feel happy with your following. You're never gonna be like, I don't know. I maybe I'm wrong. Like, and you can tell me, Kristina, if I'm wrong, but like I'm a huge believer in this where like I know when I hit 5,000, which was like my life goal, like one of my life goals, I was like, oh, this would be so great when I hit 5,000. I want to tell you that a unicorn did not come out. My sales did not skyrocket and no new authority was created for me, right? And then now my mindset is like, well, what if I hit 10? Like we're always striving, especially as business owners. That's what we know. So being happy with what we've got right now is almost like a mindfulness practice.
Mm,
And when we pour in so hard to the people that we've got now, the growth comes inevitably. So
100%.
I think really just thinking about that when we're thinking about Instagram is not necessarily like how do we get more and more and more. It's like how do we get like better
Mm.
with who we have.
Yeah, because I remember talking to someone about this a while back, and I was like, a lot of the times you think that once you have the following, then you'll do certain things, or
Yeah.
then you'll show up more consistently, or then you'll actually serve people in a better way, right? And it's like, well, actually, you should be doing those things now to get
Yeah.
like you can't expect like once you hit the 10,000, that's when you'll have people DMing you, and that's when you'll have people showing up more to your lives. Like, actually, if you want to build people showing up to your lives, you need to go live more often.
Yes, 100%. 100%. And honestly, that's just like a business lesson. Like it's not like we need to start behaving as if we are already somewhere in our goal, like somewhere near it. Because and that doesn't mean like, you're like, my goal is $5 million and you go buy a Lambo. Like, don't like that's not what I mean. But if you're like, hey, I don't work best with 10 meetings a day. And you're like, then you're hustling these 10 meetings a day and it feels bad. And even if you're an early stage business, create a schedule that you're excited about and that's going to energize you. So it's the same thing with social. It's like, I always say this is, I don't know, no one's gotten mad at me about saying this yet, but like, if you don't like dancing in reels, don't do it. Yeah, don't do it because nobody wants to see you dancing at gunpoint. Like we don't want that. Like no one wants to see you doing weird shit online that you don't want to do. So we want you to do stuff that's in your element. We want to buy from people's energy. So it's like really just figuring out like what that is and doing more of that rather than looking like and being so hyper focused on trends and then doing things that we think other people want that like they actually don't want from us.
Yeah, that's so freaking true. Like, I think you need to be in your authenticity. But I also always say,
Mhm.
like, a little caveat with this, that the authenticity comes through taking the scared action and doing the thing.
Totally.
Anyway. So sometimes, like, someone said to me a couple of weeks ago, like, oh my God, Christine, you do such good reels when you're lip syncing and you're so good at it. And I was like, do you know how many fucking takes that took? Like,
Yes,
and I like
totally.
cut it and I edited it. Like it took a bit for it to work, but I really wanted to do that reel because it really will resonate with my ideal client. Like I was passionate about getting that reel out. And, I don't do heaps of those types of ones, but it actually is easy. Like it's easier for me, but it's not, I don't think that it actually was easy to begin with. I sucked at it for a good
Mm,
period of time before I got to that stage. And then now I don't feel as uncomfortable on camera doing that. So I feel like
yes.
sometimes we have to just caveat that at first you're going to suck at it. At first, it's going to feel super
Mhm.
comfortable, and you may need to, if you, yeah, I agree. Don't dance if you don't want to bloody dance. Don't point if you don't want to point. The points are over. Like, don't do it. But like,
Yes.
find something at least where you get to show a little bit more of your personality. And I find that for me, after I've had a podcast interview, after I've had a coaching session, I'm in such beautiful high vibe energy. That's the
Yes.
time when I show up really authentically. And so that's when I'm really active and just jump on stories, create a reel, like do those fun things that allows me to be in my full energy so I can attract those right clients.
I totally agree with you. I think there's this like it's like that Carol Dweck like comfort zone, growth zone, like kind of thing where it's like we really need to be thinking about like where is it where we are like growth mindset oriented or we're fixed mindset oriented. And if we're like in this space where it's like, I don't like doing that, I'm not gonna ever try it. Like try everything one time. Right? Like try everything one time and you might not. I don't like the lip syncing reels myself. Like I find them very hard to do. They're like uncomfortable for me, but I've tried them many times and they've never felt okay. But what I find resonates with my audience is actually something a bit different.
Yeah.
And so now I've actually just really leaned into what I know resonates. Even, you know what? I don't know if you saw this, Christina. I posted this on Instagram yesterday. I was talking about how often we have to train our audiences to like want what we want them to want, right? So if all of a sudden you're this incredible business coach right now, and then one day you're like, I want to be a real estate agent, and you start posting about real estate, your audience is gonna be like, what have you done? What have you done?
Yeah.
So I want my audience to want social media tips from me. Like I'm begging these people to like every time I post a social media tip, pretty low engagement. I do something adventurous, people are all over me like glue. Like I shot my first gun in Arizona last week. I have never had more engagement other than when I broke my arm. And I'm like, you guys want a daredevil. That's not who I am. Like, I want to teach you how to use Instagram. Like, but it's funny because I'm like, this is like my audience just wants something different. So now when I'm thinking about content, I have the opportunity to think, I'm like, oh, they actually really love lifestyle content.
Yeah.
How do I get my message across with some lifestyle content? Like, and maybe I'm holding something fun, or like maybe I'm like out doing something cool, but how do I get my message infused in that? So I think we can always get creative, but I think it's asking yourself, like, what's the point where it's like too far and you're in panic and danger zone and you're not going to do anything, and you're not going to take any action. And where's the point where you can just start to take a little bit of action?
And I think as well, like it's normal for people to be like interested in other people's lives. So I think that there's an
Yeah.
element of like showing parts of your life. Like I'm the same when I'm traveling, like I get really high engagement. I'm sure you do as well. Um,
Yeah.
but I'd love for you to share your thoughts on like being conscious of what you are sharing with regards to what's relating to make sure that you are attracting the right people, because you also
Yeah.
need to be attracting just daredevils that don't want social media, like, right? Like, how do
Yeah.
we how do we attract the right clients through building community and the right
Yeah.
content without alienating our purpose of our business?
Totally, 100%. Like even I had said in that story where I talked about this, where I was like, just so you're aware, like this is not going to become like a daredevil account. Like you're not going to see me up here, like, swinging from trees. But I think what's really about like, how do you show character and how do you show who you are? And I think the rest starts to follow with that. When I think about influencers and I think about really successful people online, a big piece of what we love about them is that we relate to them. So why influencers work the way they work is because, of course, we're going to buy those jeans because that girl has the same body type as me. Oh, we're going to buy that like delicious granola because that girl has two kids and I've got one kid and they look like they're like granola, right? I'm a sucker for an influencer, like an entrepreneur influencer. They show me something that they're doing. I'm like, oh, I need that. I need that too. You same?
Yeah, totally.
Also, the shipping from the US that kills me. It's like
Oh,
they're
don't even get me started with shipping from US. I was posting about Glossy the other day because I was like, I got home and with the jet lag, and Glossy was so freaking good for bloat and just getting back onto like jet lag. It was so good. And so I was posting about that, and some people in Australia were like, oh my God, how do you get that? I can't find it. And I was like, sorry, I got it while I was in America. You can't ship it here yet. I really apologize. And I was like, oh, was I just influencing?
You were, honestly, but this is the thing. It's like we're always influencing. Like, you know, one of my favorite stories of this is like, again, I have at this time in the pandemic, I have maybe 2,500 followers. And every day I'm eating oatmeal from this company. And it's like this special kind of oatmeal. And I like I put an affiliate link up. And this was before you could like you had needed 10K to swipe. So I was sending people my affiliate link when people asked.
Wow.
I think I made like $400 off of this oatmeal. Like it was insane. Like as if I'm like an oatmeal influencer. But what was interesting, we were all locked at home. People wanted different breakfast options, right? Like I was catering to my audience. So I think what I'm like to circle a bit is that we really like want to like and buy from people who are like us. That's why not everyone works with every business coach. That's why not everyone works with every life coach, every social media manager, because we're innately more interested in some people than we are others. And so I think what's really cool is you actually want to be polarizing, and I'm putting that in air quotes, but like you want to be polarizing and showing enough of your personality so people can actually think, hey, you're not somebody that I want to work with. Like for me, even like, and I'll just be honest, I haven't said this out loud yet, but like even when I posted me shooting a gun, which was like a really safe environment, like it was very like leisurely, no animals, like nothing. It was like pop cans. I had a moment of like, oh my God, like I'm worried about what people are going to think about this. And I don't want people to associate me with guns. Like, I'm like, I don't want that to be. And I had a really positive reaction. Like, people were so like, this is so funny. Like, you did this. Like, you know, they were so happy about my friends who had taught me. Like, it was cool. But immediately, my first thought before posting was, I was like, I don't want people to think that that's what I do in my spare time.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just so it's just so different than what I usually do. So I think what's so interesting is like when we can show those moments where we're being authentic, we're having fun in our own way. Would I want someone to work with me in my business who like takes everything super, super seriously? Probably not, because that's the kind of client they're going to be.
Yeah.
So they're probably not an ideal client for me anyway. So if I'm like kind of turning them off, like that's fine. So I think it's finding that boundary of like when you're building community online, showing enough of your personality where you can make those connections and you're really like I know somebody who's like so polarizing online and people love her. They love her or hate her. And she's so happy with that. So I think I think that's kind of my thought on it, is just trying to find a way to like be able to authentically showcase who you are. And I think your community will follow in that.
Yeah, I so agree with you. And it's one of the things that I've actually been really trying to work on in the last year specifically,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I am trying to find like what's my point of difference and how do I communicate that point of difference. And one of the things that actually one of the speakers at the dinner series spoke to, Mike, who is the stage coach,
Yeah.
he spoke about like communicating what is your specific opinion about this. So like noticing like what other people are talking about online and then asking yourself like, what is your specific opinion about this? Because learning to actually communicate that allows you to separate yourself from other people, right? And I love that you shared that, because it is like, how do you show your personality? How do you actually separate yourself from other people? And it's not a negative thing. It's actually what helps you stand out and makes people connect with you and relate with you, because otherwise, how do they know whether they're your person or not, right? So I love that. Is there anything else like you'd love to explore with regards to, you know, standing out and doing something different online? Like, is there anything else like that you feel like, you know, is there any other tips? So I'm going to go tips and tricks. Are there any other tips and tricks when it comes to like building your following, building your community online that you find has been working really well lately?
Yeah, I think one of them is very clear, and you kind of just touched on this, is like it's messaging, like being very clear in your messaging about like what you like doing, what you don't like doing, and how you are different than everyone else who does what you do. I think what's beautiful about our current landscape is that there's like lots of everything and we all have a lot of choice, but it's also, I'm going to put air quotes, competitive, but I'm a big believer there's enough food for everyone. Like we all have enough work. There's enough work for everybody to get started at least. And so for me, it's like, I think it's figuring out what your messaging is and how you differentiate yourself from, you know, the average social media manager, the average business coach, the average business owner, and how you could speak to that like more honestly with people so that you're attracting the right kind of people. I think that's a big one. And the other thing I would do, what I would say to do is like really trying things. Like I think we're in an era, which I think is really cool, where social media really rewards you for trying stuff. It rewards you for, you'll see it like, I remember when we started the Social Snippet, like maybe 2 weeks later, Reels came out. And I remember being like, that's weird. Like these long videos. Like, what are we going to do with these long videos where everybody's dancing? And then now they're like, it's a must. Like when I sell a social media package, it's like they're asking for reels. They want us to come record them. Like it's like so different than the landscape was 3 years ago, which is great. And so we all get to grow. And so I think just figuring out like what social media, like whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever tool you sell best on, is figuring out like how do you maximize the tools on it so you're rewarded for your time there. So even like I heard Natalie Alice from Boss Babe speak in Chris's Elite Level Mastermind, and she was awesome. But one of the things she said was like, we kind of don't have an excuse not to try to get in front of new people because Reels is really projecting us into new spaces. So even like posting as many reels as you can with your message and just trying things and seeing what works. And I would say one of the other pieces, like the last kind of like tip I have is like to detach yourself from like things not going well on socials. So this is something I see a lot is like someone will post something and they'll get 30 views, 300 views, whatever. And they're like, oh, crappy. It's not crappy. It's just information.
Yeah.
It's just information. And so like my business partner, Maria, she is like a social media goddess. And every time she makes a reel, it's so high quality. And I'll make a reel and my hands are shaking. I'm just putting a bunch of clips together and it might perform better. And we'll talk about it. And it's not anything really that I did. It could have hit at a different time. I could have used a better sound. I could have just gotten more engagement on the front end. Like there's like really not a lot of science going on. So I think detaching yourself from those outcomes and when things happen, saying, it's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting that happened. And then replicating it. And if you're noticing, oh, I'm getting bad results a few times, that might not be the way your audience wants to learn. My audience doesn't want social media tips from me. So I masquerade my social media tips in lifestyle content.
Yeah.
And that seems to work. So I think trying to find a way to detach yourself a little from the outcome.
Yeah, it's so funny, isn't it? Because I find like sometimes I'll be like, oh my God, this reel is going to be so good. And then you post
Oh, yeah, same.
then you're just like, oh my God, seriously. But I think one of the things I love to let people know too, like, is don't delete it. Like, it's so funny how sometimes I've posted it and it's bombed. And then 2, 3 days, 5 days later, it starts going well. And I'm like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
so random.
And one of the other questions I'd love to get people to ask themselves is, would you rather have 100,000 followers or $100,000? What would you choose?
$100,000.
Yeah, right? Like 100%. Because $100,000 actually doesn't mean much. And if you have 50,000, I have had clients come to us with $50,000, 50,000 followers, and they can't sell a $10 product.
Yeah.
That means
yeah.
that doesn't mean anything, right? Like, and so I would rather say like if you had 500 followers and they're so engaged and they buy everything you're doing, that is so much more meaningful and great than having a ton of followers that aren't interested in you at all. So I think it's about finding that balance.
Yeah. And I think I'd love to know whether this is the same in Canada. Like, I don't pay too much attention with regards to engagement as such. And maybe this is something that I need to like work on myself anyway, but it's like in Australia, I find that people stalk and follow, but don't engage for
Oh,
like it takes like the amount of clients that I've had like come from nowhere that I'm like,
yeah.
didn't even know you were following me because you've never engaged in any of my stuff. But I'll randomly get a DM or I'll get a discovery call booking and be like, oh, who's this person? And I'll go to check out and they're following me, but I don't know how long for, but also they've never engaged in my stuff ever. And then I'll get on the phone and chat with them and they're like, yeah, I've been following you for 3 years and I love everything about what you do. And I've post recently and really hit for me. And I'm like, but why aren't people engaging? So I'd love for you to share, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, how do I get people to engage? And is that also the same in Canada?
Yeah, I think that's human nature, right? Is that like we like to watch from afar. It also really depends on your niche. This is something that I see with a lot of people where they have a niche that there's some shame around engaging with. Like if you're I know somebody who's a coach for like the wives of alcoholics. People are not going to engage with her content. Like, and so it's very hard to like explain that, not to her, she's fabulous, but like when we're talking about it, it's like people want ROI. And I'm like, people aren't engaging, they're watching. And then I had the same thing happening with Christine. The other day we met with a florist for our big event. And she was like, I'd love to do your flowers for free. And we were like, oh, we were going to pay you. Like, that's very nice. Like, and she was like, I've been watching you guys since day one. And I was like, I would have never known. I've never seen this profile before anything. I've never seen engagement. Right. So I think that's actually a better way, Christine, for you to think about like the impact you're making
Mm.
and not being so tied to the numbers of like what you're seeing in your analytics, but actually being tied to the impact that you're seeing kind of long term.
Mm.
Something else I've seen too is with some of our clients where they will get clients and it'll be, hey, a few weeks ago you posted this on LinkedIn and I've been sitting with it.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff happens. So yeah, I think people just naturally creep. And I think it's hard to get people to engage because often we're solving problems for people, and often people don't want to admit that they have a problem.
Yeah, true. And I think as well, like I find like engagement. I look at like my trends of like how I engage. I am the same.
Yeah.
I like literally follow other people's stuff. Like I saw a post this morning and I'd seen other people of like friends of mine that have commented and I just haven't commented yet. And it wasn't actually because I didn't want to comment. It was just because I was just in my morning kind of like energy of
Yeah.
scroll, not engaging. I was just scrolling. And I think sometimes like you've got to be conscious that just because people aren't engaging, that doesn't mean that they're not watching. But I also then have to be like, okay, what are the things that I actually engage with and how can I start building that into my content? Because the things that I engage with are sometimes a little bit more relatable or sometimes a little bit more like lighthearted. Whereas I find that
Yes.
sometimes like I went through a phase where I was doing way too much education content and then I was just like losing people because I mean people were still reading it, but they weren't engaging and my engagement bombed and my growth started to slow. So I was like, I need to
Yeah.
change things up a bit to, get people engaging again. So I'd love to know what your thoughts would be on what you would suggest if someone's wanting to start growing. Like what would you, and they may have
Mhm.
noticed a plateau with their growth, what would you get them
Yeah.
to focus on and what would you ask them to do?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say, no matter what, is we should be doing 15 minutes of engagement 5 days a week. So that's where we engage, like you engage on your own account with other people, 5 days a week for 15 minutes. You either engage with ideal clients, you go to competitors and engage on their posts. If that feels good for you, you engage with, this is a hack. I don't know, maybe it's controversial. You can engage with, like on competitors posts, but like with people who are their engaged followers, like, those are all things you could do. And that's not even a negative energy. Like even I'm thinking like I do engagement or like someone on my team does engagement and Lindsay Schwartz is the person that those are the people they engage with because I love Lindsay and Lindsay and I have a similar type of like vibe of an ideal client. So I'm like, yeah, her people are my people and those are the people I want to follow me. So that's great.
And you do it genuinely. Like it's not like you're doing
Yeah,
like, oh, I have to engage now. I'm going to comment some random bullshit comment. Like you're
no, you want to do it in a way that like you want to see, can you provoke a response? That's what you want to be thinking when you're writing it. It's not fire emoji, tongue out. Like it's not going to, especially men, this is not going to provoke the response you want. You want it to be something that people are going to want to engage with. And so, and you leave a meaningful comment. And so I would say that's the first place I would start is that 15 minutes, 5 days a week, making that a habit. If you're struggling with like where to go, if you're a location-based business, I would go into a location tag. I would go into hashtags that are about your location or about your niche. So there's like lots of places you can go to engage. So that's what I would start with. The other thing I would do is if I was like really plateaued on growth and like I've been trying some things, is I would see what I've been trying and look at what the best performing content was and see what resonates with people. The other thing I would do is I would actually ask my audience what they wanted to see. So if you're like, okay, I'm like, I'm posting. We had a client do this. She was posting and she was posting like graphic. And nobody was engaging with these graphics. Like it takes a bit to get people to engage with graphics. But when we were able to like kind of shift her strategy into like actually taking kind of those graphics and making them reels, she was saying the same thing and all the things, but people were getting more from it. It was just a little more engaging.
Yeah.
So you can actually ask your audience what they like, and that can be really impactful as well, is just like actually getting their perspectives on it. And then the other thing I would say, like if I was like, okay, I like really want to grow, is I would just try my best to like really finesse like what my strategy is and like how do I know I'm not growing? So looking at being like, what are metrics of growth for me? Because for me, I have like a follower count. I like to grow every month. I'm like, I very easily, I would say grow about 25 followers a week. Like that feels good for me. And then when I put in the work, but at the same time, I've had months where I've grown 400 followers and I have months where I haven't grown any followers, and that's fine too. But my metric is actually like, do I get leads? Like, do people reach out to me saying, hey, I need help with some Instagram stuff. I want to join the social business club. I like need some podcasting support. Like that's actually the metric that I'm like most interested in. And I'll tell you a very quick story, Christine, like, because you know me, I'm long-winded, but I had a reel go viral. And I had to take it down because it was so horrible. Like the comments were just so horrible. And just people were just, and it was so silly. Like it was like I was giving a piece of business advice. People do not like confident women. And I was like, I basically told them, if you're not a chef, and my husband was like, don't post this. Like, do not post this because it's provocative. And I was like, it's provocative, it's the truth. And then I posted it and he was like, I told you not to post it. But it's if you're not a chef, pasta shouldn't be the first photo on your feed. And it was just basically like saying like, hey, if you're a business owner, people should be abundantly clear what that you do in the first minute. Like it shouldn't be like, oh, like this is a blender company and there's a kitten. Why is that kitten there? Like it should be like, oh, and people were like, how dare you tell me what to post? Like it was so horrible. Like that was the least of my
Oh
concerns, that
my God.
comment.
That's
It was so
great
horrible.
advice. It's
I
great.
know.
Like, serious.
People were freaking free. I've never seen anything like this. Maria and I were like 40,000, 50,000. Oh my God. Oh my God, that comment. Oh my God. Oh my God. And so we just took it down. I will tell you that no business was resulted of that. Like no good followers, like nothing really like happened. I posted another reel. It's still up. Got 600 views, 3 clients. Lifetime value of my clients is quite high. So three, like, you know what I mean? Like that's way worth it to me than going viral. So ask yourself what success means to you before you're like getting down on like, oh, I'm not growing, or, my metrics don't look great. We can always improve some of that stuff, but really getting clear on like, okay, what does success look like for me on Instagram? That'll be helpful.
And I think as well, like you said, like check what resonates with your people, like go and actually look at your analytics.
Yeah.
And I feel as well, like doing it over a lens of a longer period of time, like don't look at it every day and be like, it's not working.
No.
Like don't look at it every week. Like maybe do it, like how often, I'd love to know like how often you do it. It's like 1 month, every month, or what is it?
Yeah, so we do once a month and then like a deep dive quarterly is what I would say, because you're not going to see enough results in a month to be able to make any like huge changes. But like take a look and like honestly, I would just choose a few things to look for, and your accounts sometimes will go down, like your metrics, and that's good. Like it's good because it meant you had a great month the month before. And so it's actually kind of reframing some of that, because it's not like business. It's not always gonna be up, 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 right? I've had some great reels. Reels have huge impact on analytics, like huge, which is great. And if I don't post a reel in a month, I feel that as well, right? So just thinking about like, I would just check them monthly, and then quarterly, I would do a deep dive and do some content planning.
Yeah, I love that. And I have to get much better at content planning because sometimes I do too many on the fly and then it's like not as effective. Like bringing it back to like my message and making sure that it's actually really purposeful, I find that works really
Yeah.
well. Um, but I want to talk to you about like what else I see you do really, really well is actually not just on the app, right? Like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
you support other people, and I see that you constantly share and support others. You're commenting, you're engaging, like you're creating content regularly and you're posting regularly, you're doing stories, reels, like all the things. But there's a lot of things that you do offline, which I'm imagining would also
Mm-hmm.
help build your community online. So
Yeah.
can you talk to us a little bit more about like obviously showing up here and doing a podcast episode, obviously is
Yeah.
support that, but getting in front of new audiences. But there's other things that you do as well. I'd love for you to share your thoughts around that too.
Yeah, so I'm very blessed that early on I knew what worked in business, which was relationships. And I think that was from my previous life in working in corporate. But a lot of people put relationships on the back burner when they're building a business, and they don't realize the power of a referral network. So you and I, we talked about this a bit, but like three years ago, we met in an online mastermind, right? And we kind of reconnected through the dinner series. But I talked to every single person that was in that mastermind, and I had a call with every single person. And so there were like 100 people, 150 in there. And I met with every single person and gave them social media advice. I just like poured in. I still had a 9 to 5. Maria and I were like just hustling through these people. And that was the core of our referral network. I still get referrals from that room, still 3 years ago. Like, and random strangers, well, people I forgot about will email me being like, I was thinking about you the other day, and like, here it is. And I think what's been successful about that is that I actually led with service when meeting people. And so what I would say is, if you're like in a season where you're just getting started, instead of asking like, what can people give me, ask what you could give others. And so meeting with people, going on one-on-one coffee chats, asking people like, what do you need in your business right now? And if you're like, hey, I actually like need a Squarespace designer, think in your Rolodex, who's someone who's a Squarespace designer that you can make that connection for. So really like what's been key has been connecting with people online, in person, doing that one-on-one, always asking people what they need and how you can be of service. following up with that, like, so not just being like, oh yeah, like great, and then like leaving, like really keeping that connection going. There's gonna be people you connect with, like, and there's gonna be people you don't. There's also gonna be people who aren't, it's not your season to connect yet, and your season's later, and that's great too. But really, I think what's been so key to our success has been building that community offline and having those conversations. And so, like, and it doesn't have to look like expensive $15,000 masterminds. And that's something I also need to tell people is that, like, you have a local chamber of commerce, you have a local BNI group, you have a local women's meetup, you have a local group that you can go to and you can meet and you can pour into, that's like waiting for your skill set. And I've seen that even with my local chamber where I was like, oh, like, I just had this limiting belief about local. Like, I was like, oh, like people locally don't like to spend money. People locally, I don't know. Like, I go to Arizona all the time. Like, the people in Arizona are so cool. I come here, the people here are just as cool. They have just as much money, less private jets, but just as much cash. But have the greatest hearts, and they love their communities, and they're pouring in with huge amounts of service, and you get to volunteer like with them. And so even at the dinner series, Brendan Burchard said that. He was like, if you're looking for a way to grow your network, volunteer once a month. Because the people who are on boards, like, those are your ideal clients. The people who are in the room with you, those are your ideal people. So I think that has been really key for us growing our community, and has helped with our online community, no doubt. Like, I spoke at an event last week. I probably got 40 followers from being at that event. Like, that's awesome. And now people are starting to associate me with my topic, which is ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. Like, I feel like when you meet people in person and then you connect online, there's a stronger connection. So they then want to engage with your content even more. Like, I find that just makes such an extra little tip. But I love that around, like, pouring in and giving people what they need and serving them, not from a place of sales, from a place of just serving. And I feel like you're right. Like, we all have those connections. We all have those groups to be a part of, but we're not maximizing or not utilizing those, and just focusing on socials where it's all an ecosystem. Like, it's all working together.
Yeah.
Everything from the speaking, the podcasting, the just attending events. Like, I remember going to Girlfriends in Business and was in the line for lunch and was just chatting to one of the girls in the line and spoke to her about, she was like really stuck with finding her purpose. And I gave her just a couple of little tips around, like, stop trying to make it a big thing, just follow the breadcrumbs. And she messaged me like a week later, and she was like, that comment, like that message that you gave me has played on my mind every single day in the last few weeks, and I need to talk to you. I need to be on my podcast. And I was like, wow, like, that just came so easily off what I was
totally
about. But you just don't realize the impact that you have in people where you're just having a conversation. And I think that there's so much value there, and people don't prioritize that. And I feel like for finding out, like, what feels really good for you, like, I'm like yourself, big connector, love connecting with people and having great conversations. But one of the things that I recognize, like, even just coming back from LA recently, I was like, and I was saying to you this earlier, I'm not maximizing or really prioritizing the events in my local area, but here I am flying to LA to going to this.
I know the feeling.
So yeah, we're both on the same page, and I think we've just got to remember to pour into our local communities, because it does actually benefit. And it's also, I find, like, if you've got a really, really fucking small audience and you're just starting out, it actually is faster to grow by meeting people in person and then connecting with them online than trying to build just your social following online. Like, it's just, people need to trust you and connect with you and to then engage with you. So I feel like meeting them in person helps with that as well.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, I have so many ideas for community building hacks, like things you can do, like going on podcasts, like that's a great one, like hosting your own podcast, even if you do it low tech and you just do it so that you can talk to people, doing a live every week with a different person so you can get in front of your audience. Like Chris one time said this thing that I don't know, maybe this is, I'm always like, is this controversial? I don't know, but it's like this law of visibility, where it's like, the more we see people, the more we think they are successful and important, like no matter how many times you see this person. So it's like, I've had this where, I'm like, that person is everywhere. Like, I see them all. I think I'm that person to some people, like, where it's like people like see me at events and stuff, and they're like, wow, like, you're so busy. Like, your business must be doing so well. And I was like, yeah, it is doing pretty well, but like, this might look better than it is, like, just because of like how like outwards I am, so it's interesting. And one of the things Brendan said too, that I loved, that came up at the dinner series, that like, I've been thinking about kind of nonstop, is this idea of like networking for our network. And that it's not really only for us when we're meeting people. Like, when you make a great referral for somebody, there is a level of, I'm going to use the word debt, but like in air quotes, that there is a level of debt that people feel to you, because it's like, oh, I trust that person. So even at the dinner series, someone raised their hand. They're like, I need a friend in Orange County. I'm looking for an entrepreneurial friend. I have a friend that's literally her business is like making Orange County business friends. So I went to her and I was like, I'm going to connect you guys. I don't know, like maybe you guys won't like each other, but like I'm just going to do it, like whatever. This girl messages me. She's like, that was an answered prayer.
Oh,
Like, thank you so much. Like, wow. Like, and that was me networking for my friend who didn't get to be in the room and like who they're gonna be great power partners. And then that girl was like, I actually need podcast help. Right. I wasn't pitching her. I wasn't expecting anything from her. Like, I was just like, hey, my friend's awesome. You should meet her. Like, so I think when we come at things with such an open heart, which I know you agree with too, and I know you pour into people so much when you meet them in person and like when people ask you questions and they show you want to show up with them, like that's so important that we show up in such an open way. Because that's where the magic happens. And that's where actually true community is built. It's like when we're showing up in a way that's not like, what can that person give me, but rather like, what can I do for that person? That's how we've grown our whole business is like, and scaled multi six figure, like super fast was because it was about us showing up and being like, what do they need rather than, hey, do you got a client, get in my van? Like it's very focused on relationship.
and it's so interesting because like I remember like at the dinner series, there was a specific area where they were like, you know, you have to think about what your ask is and then we're going to connect you and then you have to put your ask out there. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I had from the first event to the second event was learning to actually ask an easier ask, because
Yeah.
asking for clients, this is what I saw so much. I don't know whether you noticed this, is that most people are like, oh, I'm looking for referrals. But I'm like, I don't know you. I don't know any of your business. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
so many variables that I'm like, yeah, I might know your ideal client and I want to connect you, but I also want to know more about you first before I feel trusted
Yeah.
you or trusted referral. But like, that's a difficult ask for people to answer. And you're like, setting yourself up to miss out on a beautiful opportunity. So I was like, how do we go into this with a more specific ask that is easier for people to answer so then when there can be a win-win? Because people do want
Yeah.
and they do want to give. But if you make it too difficult, then it's very hard for people to follow through. Like, did you notice that as well? Like, don't ask for referrals. Like,
Big
you
time.
can serve. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've noticed this like in a few rooms that I've been in, and one of the worst events I've ever been to, which not like it was in Toronto, like it's been years, but I went to, and this was part of me starting my own Canadian events. Was I went to this event and I sat at this table, beautiful like people, and the who run it, and the girls who sat next to me were fiends like for business. Like it was like, hey, do you have any referrals for me? Like, oh, and I was sick like about it. Like, and I remember driving home and talking to my friend Sarah, and I was like, Sarah, like, don't you think that like I'm never gonna speak to any of these people again? Like, they didn't ask me any questions about me. Like, how would I know they're a good mortgage broker? Like, how could I possibly tell my friends to hire them when like I don't know actually anything about the way that they show up? But instead, if they had come and they'd been like, hey, I'm so and so, I'm a mortgage broker. This is what I'm so passionate about helping people with. Like, I love first time home buyers, and here's why. Do you own a home? Like, oh, how are things going? Like I have been so amazed by like my real estate agent's an amazing example of this. I bought a house very young with a real estate agent, and he was awesome. And you know, you don't make a lot of commission on a first home. You make it on the sale. So I got married, and then my husband has a real estate agent aunt. And it was made very known to me that I had to use this real estate agent aunt, which was fine. I adore this woman. So I sobbed telling my initial real estate agent, sobbed. Like I was like, I'm so sorry. Like you're owed the sale. Like I feel so guilty. Like whatever, whatever. And he was like, Kristina, do you know how many referrals you've given me?
Oh,
Like they've more than paid for, and those people might work with him for the rest of their lives. Like you have no idea, right? So, but he didn't come at it being like, well, yeah, you know, like that was my time. Like, you know, I put in all this work with you at the beginning so that when you got a bigger house, it would pay off. No, he was like, that's so great that you have an aunt that's gonna do that. And if you ever need anyone and need any help, let me know. And then when I needed a maintenance worker for something, he was the first person I thought of to ask, and he helped me up. Like, and he's doing that in service, and I recommend him to everybody. He doesn't even know I recommend him. So I think it's like really thinking about like how do we create like those service-based relationships where we're just showing up for people, like, and just being honest and knowing our boundaries. Like we don't have to work for free, but I think like really just like pouring into people. I've never seen anybody do this and it go badly.
100% agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been in events like that before, like where it's just literally like take. And you just really got to, yeah. And I actually started my events for the exact same reason. It's so funny. Like I started
Oh my
events
God,
in
awesome.
Brisbane, ran them for 3 years because I was like, I couldn't find my people. Like I was like, everything's just sort of salesy and icky and just like pushing your business card into people's hands. I was like, no, this is not the environment that I want to create. So
Yeah.
I'd love for you to share with us, tell us about High Vibe Women.
Yeah. So basically where this came from was exactly that, right? I went to this event, I came home and I was like, ick, about the whole thing, ick before it was the ick. And I just was like, I just like, no, there's more. And I think I knew there was more because we've been in rooms like the ones we've been in where I'm like, I go to these amazing rooms in the States and I'm like, these people are just so giving and like you build these amazing relationships across the world. And like, I just know this is possible. So we started running these dinners and they were like 30 people, 15 people, like, and it would be, we'd get everyone to introduce themselves and it was like very low key. We made the first one we made $7, I remember. And then we realized we didn't calculate gas and it was like a long drive. We were like, okay, we made $7. We made $7. But it was about service. It was about us trying to like meet people. And this stuff works for our business too, right? Like we get in front of people, we talk about what we're great at. So anyway, we kept doing them. And then we ran our first 100-person event in January and we were like, ah, shit, we're onto something here. Like people were just so transformed by it and like just having those conversations. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's probably what I end up pivoting into, like more than the social snippet in long term in my lifetime. But running a second 120-person event in October on the 26th in Canada, just outside of Toronto. But really, it's just an opportunity for entrepreneurs to connect with one another in a meaningful way. We have speakers, cute little gift bags. It's all great. But it's really just focused on helping people build their communities. And because I know referrals work, I know when people build like really service-based communities, that's where the magic happens.
100% agree. 100% agree. Well done. That's absolutely.
Can I get you to Canada?
Yeah.
Are you gonna come to Canada?
Yeah, sure. I'll come to Canada. Hell yeah. Amazing. Oh my God. Love Canada. I've been to Canada, but I have not been to Toronto. I've not been to that side yet. So
You're a Vancouver girly.
Yes, I've been to Vancouver. That was much easier to get to.
It's such a letdown when you come out this way from Vancouver. I always tell people to go to Toronto first because like Vancouver's so beautiful. But yeah, no, we'll have to have you because honestly, I think this is like it's for people like us, right? Like whether you're Australian or you're from New Zealand or you're from Toronto or you're from the States, we have people from California come, like it's so great. But it's really just about building that community of incredible women who are lifting each other up.
And Canadians and Aussies are so similar. Like so
I agree.
Yeah.
It's that Commonwealth vibe.
Yes, totally. Awesome. So can you share with us how we can work with you, how we can follow you, where to hang out and follow your adventures?
Adventures. Welcome to my adventure Instagram. So I would just firstly, Kristina, I just want to say thank you so much because I know, like for me, someone having me on their podcast is like with their trusted community, the most important people in their community. So I just want to say thank you so much. And I've loved chatting with you. I can't wait to have you on my podcast. But so yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Kristina.Bartold. I spell my name with a K because I'm Polish, and or at the Social Snippet, which is our page. So we'd love to see you there. I also have a podcast that by the time this comes out, it's going to be rebranded to be called Community with Kristina Bartold. So can't wait to see you there. And Christine's episode will probably come out after this. So keep a lookout there. And then the other piece as well is you could find out a little bit more about us at the Social Business Club. So the socialbusinessclub.ca is our amazing membership where we teach people how to do their own social media, how to grow online, all in an amazing community with amazing entrepreneurs. We're 50 plus entrepreneurs in there. We're just getting started, but we teach everything in there. So you can go it alone if you can't do any done for you services yet. But yeah, we just love it so much. So if you are interested in joining, I'd love to offer you a $1 first month. You can use the code Christine.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, lovely. It's been such a joy to talk to you. And thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and pouring into my audience. It means the world. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. And if you've found any value out of this episode, make sure you hit the follow button so you get access to the episodes as soon as they are live. And make sure you come hang out with me on Instagram. You can find me at KristineCorcoran_coach. Have an incredible week.